And the Democratic Party's looking at that just like they did with Hillary Clinton and going, honestly, these guys are still going to go out and vote for him. And they're not wrong.
Have Americans been duped about President Biden's fitness for office based on his aides keeping him in a bubble?
Well, I can tell you that I think a lot of Americans, including Democrats.
Alex Thompson is the one that wrote the article about the fucking 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. thing, if I'm not mistaken, right? I said originally it was Washington Post, but I think it was an Axios report. Liberals are not okay. That's awesome. Why aren't they talking about Trump's health? They're so obsessed with getting Biden out. Jesus Christ. Why aren't they talking about Trump's health? Bro, the dude lives on Big Macs and Diet Coke, okay? He's not going anywhere. I don't know how. I don't know why, but that's it, okay? This motherfucker, you can't use your mind power to wish away Donald Trump. It just doesn't work that way. And it's so funny because this is the most Turkish thing, dude. Us Turks in Turkey have this fantasy about Erdogan. Every couple of months, there will be a new story about how Recep Tayyip Erdogan has cancer, actually. Low key. He's hiding it. He's hiding it. He's going to die any day now. Russians have this about Vladimir Putin, okay? And it is literally the dumbest. It is just pure fantasy. Evil never dies. These motherfuckers are not going away. Please, it just only shows me that America is becoming like a more crippled nation, and more like the countries that it dominates for the most part. It's so funny to just be like, no, yeah. He's just, nobody's talking about how bad Trump's brain is, actually. It's like, is it? I don't know. I mean, he's been fucked up since day one. He started off talking about how immigrants are rapists, and he's kind of still doing that. That hasn't really changed since 2016. My big brain theory is that his family pushed Brandon to say it. Stay in because they didn't have the heart to say otherwise and figured he'll die if he keeps going. So win-win. That's crazy. No. Yeah. The idea that Trump is actually in a state of mental decay akin to Joe Biden is also pure copium. You can just rewatch that debate and you will recognize that Donald Trump is insane but coherent. Okay? And sometimes he's still incoherent when he's going off the cuff or whatever, but he can still deliver a speech. Joe Biden, on the other hand, is probably sane when he has his moments, but he's completely incoherent. He's demented. Do you know what I mean? I suspect in his good moments, he has he has a clear mind on things, but he's just not going to be able to demonstrate that because it's too wishy-washy. He's sundowning. There's going to be moments where he comes off he doesn't know what the is going on, and he's just going to pop off like this. And it's not a stutter. You cannot just personally write this off as a stutter. It's ridiculous. No. Next debate, give him 3 lines of coke. I mean, Biden will literally die, I think. He will just die on the spot. Trump has a theory on exercise. I know. We've talked about this before. And God damn it, maybe he's right. The idea that he has a finite amount of energy like a battery, and that's why he doesn't exercise, because he doesn't want to deplete his battery. And guess what, dude? He's doing fine. So maybe he's right. It's one of my funniest Trump tropes, is that he thinks his heart is like a battery, and there's only a finite amount.
From the Democratic Party, lawmakers that have actually spent time with Joe Biden have felt duped, have felt gaslit. And part of the reason that I wrote this piece is because that anger, that frustration also includes people in the White House as well. The fact of the matter is that really only about 20 people regularly interact with Joe Biden on a day-to-day basis in sort of an intimate way. A lot of the other aides, even ones just 1 or 2 clicks outside that inner circle, you only see him every once in a while. And, they've noticed, little, gaffes, or you can call them brain farts, but they were always in ways that you could sort of rationalize them as, well, anyone could say that. And, he's always been a bit loose. So the fact is that aides in the White House were just as shocked as many other Democrats on the Hill at what they were seeing. And there was real anger And there was sadness because they felt like this would maybe hurt them in the election. There was like anger. They felt that they had not been told the truth by their bosses. And a lot of them still feel like they are not getting clear answers as to what happened in that debate. And was this the first time that Joe Biden acts like that blank face stare, the mouth agape, not being able to put sentences together? There was this feeling that there is no way that this was the first time this happened. And there's a feeling that it's not going to be the last time it happened. So there is not just discord within the Democratic Party writ large. There's also discord within the White House, within the Biden campaign as well.
And you're seeing the public perception of all of this playing out in the polls. There's this new CBS poll taken after the debate, and it asked the question, should Biden be the nominee? Among Democratic registered voters, 55% said he should stay in the race, but 45% said he should step aside. And then you look at, does Biden have mental and cognitive health to serve as president? In June 9th of this year, 65% said he did not. That's of registered voters. 72% now say that he does not. And so I think that really goes to the question, right, of is how much is President Biden and his aides, how much are they paying attention to these polls? I mean, are these numbers good enough for a race this close where turnout will be so critical?
I mean, it is still possible. I want to be clear. It's still possible that Joe Biden can win this race because there are tens of millions of people in this country that would vote for Joe Biden at 110 over Donald Trump. That is sort of the Trump polarization effect.
Half of his voters still want him to fuck off. Yeah. And the Democratic Party's looking at that just like they did with Hillary Clinton and going, honestly, these guys are still going to go out and vote for him. And they're not wrong. To a certain degree, they're not wrong. When push comes to shove, a lot of people are going to go out and vote for Joe Biden. And the polls also reflect that reality as well. There's a far greater percentage of people that want a different candidate in the Democratic Party, but it doesn't matter. There's still a strong, like solidified base of support for the Democratic leadership. And part of that is because like the people are genuinely terrified of the Republican project. Part of it is because they genuinely hate Donald Trump and how radical the Republican Party has become. But the point is, just like with Hillary Clinton, you shouldn't rely on that. You shouldn't rely on negative polarization to go and vote for a bad candidate, because guess what happened with Hillary Clinton? She lost. Do you understand? This is my point. Like, I know I'm probably the worst person to make this point because like I'm so critical of the Democratic Party that like people probably look at me and go, you don't give a shit. You want them to lose. It's so easy for a lot of liberals to say this. And they don't understand it. They don't understand that, like, dude, even if you should be screaming this from the rooftops if you're like a diehard Democratic Party guy, okay? If you're the most annoying liberal on the planet, you should be genuinely trying to replace Biden.
And I still think it is possible to win. The bigger question is whether or not he can serve adequately in the job he is running for 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now. But to your point about the polls specifically, it's going to be really critical to see how people respond once we get more polling. The CBS poll was really only what we have so far. There are polls in the field right now. We will see if we get any before the July 4th weekend. We'll almost certainly get some in the week after. Donors are looking at them very closely. Democratic lawmakers are looking at them very closely. And there could be sort of like a run on the bank effect if it shows a real collapse of his support, but we don't know.
Let me quickly ask you about his family telling him to stay in the fight. You have First Lady Jill Biden telling Vogue magazine the family will not let those 90 minutes define the 4 years he's been president, and maintained we will continue to fight. But how much is a family's stance about Biden's legacy and remaining time in office versus the 4 years in office if we were reelected? To remind everyone, if he were reelected at the end of those 4 years, he would be 86.
What is this? Wait. New post-debate New Hampshire poll came out. Shows former President Donald Trump holding a narrow lead over Joe Biden. Nah, there's also the Robert Kennedy part of this conversation, which I can't believe we're having, but it's like, what is happening in this country, dude? What is happening in this country? Like, there's nothing funnier to me than all of these conspiracy guys loving RFK Jr. because he is such a regular Democrat in every sense of the word. NPR finally interviewed RFK Jr. And in that interview, he, of course, said a bunch of shit like NPR is never showing my debates or my rallies because they're too afraid of the truth, whatever, right? So the NPR was asking, like, okay, so what are your opinions on foreign policy? Like, how do you differ from Joe Biden? How do you differ from Donald Trump? He's like, we need to cut military spending. We need to balance the budget. And I was like, oh my God, he's talking about balancing the budget. But hold on, let him cook. He's talking about cutting military spending. So then NPR asked him the question. Okay. You go, okay, what aspects of military funding would you want to cut? He's like, oh, we need to go back to like Cold War era spending. If it was good enough for the Cold War, then it's good enough for us now. Fine. And then they're like, so would you cut funding to Ukraine and Israel? And how did he answer that question? How did RFK Jr. answer that question? He said, I would cut funding to Ukraine. And of course, NPR predictably did not follow up on that and went, what about Israel? Would you not cut funding to Israel? Because of course he wouldn't, because he is like, on that front, he's basically just a Republican. On every other issue, he's a regular old Democrat. Okay. He is a regular run-of-the-mill Democrat who just is an anti-vaxxer, anti-medicine. I don't even want to just say anti-vaxxer, because RFK Jr. seemingly is anti-medicine, which I think is funnier than just simply being an anti-vaxxer. And honestly, that's it. You're like, I want the regular old Democratic Party agenda, but I also think medication makes you gay and autistic. If you're that kind of guy, RFK's for you. And it turns out there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people who are like that, apparently. Significant enough people, which is crazy. Anyway, let's continue.
I mean, it's such an interesting question. You know, the Biden campaign, Biden political life has always been a family affair. And you know, they are now in their bunker and they are trying to rally.
What? I've been watching you for a long time. I'm surprised you haven't talked more about RFK. Seems so much better than Biden. Not captured by corporations. Most important thing since Biden's doomed to lose. What are you talking about? RFK's not captured by corporations because he's already a run-of-the-mill Democrat on issues that matter. Kind of a Republican on issues that are also pretty consequential. Okay, specifically so that he can, like, you know, become an outsider, seemingly be an outsider. But that's it. That's the reason why I don't talk about RFK Jr. Because he is not the outsider, ball player that you guys want to believe he is. Okay, he's just the crank guy. I was right on Andrew Yang before, when everyone was glazing him in independent media. I was right on Tulsi Gabbard when everyone in independent media was glazing her. Okay. And I'm right on RFK now. Please stop with this nonsense. Oh my Lord. Every 4 years, there's a guy like RFK Jr. that comes out, okay, and presents themselves as this like outsider in the realm of politics. And every crank lover of like, heterodox thinking will gravitate towards that candidate, like a bunch of Jimmy Dore lovers out here. Okay. And every goddamn year I have to have this conversation. This year I didn't have this conversation at all because most people don't give a shit. So even the cranks don't give a shit that much. So they're not constantly coming in here being like, well, what about RFK? What about RFK? What about RFK? RFK, if you look at his policy papers, he's literally just a regular Democrat. And somewhat of a conservative Democrat, as a matter of fact, on a lot of issues. He's also an unconditional dick rider of Israel. He's both anti-Semitic in the sense that he believes Ashkenazi Jews and the Chinese created COVID together, but he's also a relentless Zionist, which is awesome, I think. It's just really funny that people are like, this guy is a real outsider. It's like, bro, his last name is Kennedy. What are you talking about? An outsider. This is the closest to an American political dynasty we've ever gotten, aside from like the Bushes, you know? He's a libertarian. Come on. Yeah, okay. When I was 20, first following you, I thought Andrew Yang was an awesome candidate because of UBI until I watched your stream and realized what was going on, lol. Yeah.
Sometimes feel at their strongest when they are under pressure like this. They sort of unite and link together. The problem is that, to your point, there's some serious concerns from longtime Biden allies, Biden confidants, that staying in this race could tarnish what is otherwise a pretty incredible, improbable in some ways, legacy of political life. Because if he stays in this race and loses to Donald Trump, that could end up being the first line of his obituary. And that's what people who really love Joe Biden are still a little bit worried about.
Alex Thompson, thank you.
So let's get more now from CNN senior White House correspondent MJ Lee. MJ, Biden campaign aides are vehemently dismissing the possibility that he will drop out. Of course, we don't really have that temperature check of polls to see where the American electorate is on a Biden candidacy. What are you learning today?
Yeah, Brianna, that's absolutely right. The campaign for now is digging in. White House officials, senior campaign aides, they're all saying that there's no world where they are currently contemplating the idea of President Biden dropping out of the 2024 race, really emphasizing that he is staying in, and also the family making clear that they are fully behind the president as he continues to run for re-election as well. But it is really hard to overstate the widespread and deep panic within the Democratic Party. Biden aides, of course, they have been fielding phone calls, messages all weekend long from surrogates and donors and others within the party that were very concerned about the president's debate performance. And I think a really important space to watch going forward, Brianna, is going to be the down ballot races. I spoke with one Democratic lawmakers who said Congress is the firewall for the Democratic Party, and what they are.
Just wondering, Corbyn put UBI in his manifesto for election in the UK. Universal basic income is not necessarily a bad idea. It can be a left-wing UBI. It can be a right-wing UBI. The difference between a left-wing UBI and a right-wing UBI is that right-wing UBI is utilized as a mechanism to displace existing social safety nets. Left-wing UBI is complementary to the existing social safety nets. Andrew Yang's UBI was right-wing UBI, akin to Milton Friedman and his original assessment on UBI, which is give Americans money, but eviscerate, gut the social safety nets, gut the social sector completely, and then have them operate in a private marketplace. Anyway.
Are doing right now, Democratic lawmakers is really waiting on research, waiting on polls, any data that could come in the coming days.
One question, why do you always have Jimmy Dore's dick in your mouth, aka Pookie? Please tell me it's because I forgot to run the 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour and you're not an unironic Jimmy Dore dick rider in the year 2024. Like, that's crazy. Please, I'm not. Like, I forgot to run the 3-minute ad break. You're going to tell me that, right? Like, you're here to be like, haha, just kidding. Like, you forgot to run the ad break. That's why I'm saying this. I'm not kidding. Oh, God. We're so back. We're back. Listen, this is a byproduct of being back. Okay? You're going to have some MAGA dick riders in here, and you're going to have some cranks in here. That's awesome. Here's the 3-minute ad break now for all, though. Unless you want to not see those ads. I love you all, but it sucks y'all still have beef. Brother, what are you talking about? It's the most one-sided beef of all time. I never wanted to talk about Jimmy Dore at all. I don't give a shit about Jimmy Dore. Get the f out of here. Every single one of these, I never talk about him. I just talked specifically about cranks, and his name was brought up for that reason. Like, this is not like a friendly contest where we were just like friends who we now have beef. Okay. I don't want anything to do with him. You stay bringing him up though. Can you find another moment where I brought him up in the past year? Like, it's going to be two editions, and it's because of forced to vote. We all know. No, you dumb. It's because he's like become this right-wing grifter who literally shits on anyone who doesn't come on his show, including Bernie Sanders, okay? Who thinks that like there is a, allegiance that we can cultivate with like MAGA Trump supporters. Shut the fuck up, okay? Delusional nonsense. I hate how not only do I despise political cranks of this magnitude, specifically, I hate how parasocial and sweaty you are. Like, why won't my two favorite content creators make up? Like, Jimmy Dore is like a 65-year-old man, brother. What the fuck are you talking about? Make up. Let him live his life. Go watch him if you want to watch him. I got nothing, I got nothing. With Jimmy Dore, Candace Owens attacking George Floyd. What is this? Jimmy Dore. The police did nothing wrong. They lied to you about George Floyd. Candace Owens. What is that? Is he a kick streamer? Is that Rumble? Yeah, dude, why can't you make up with my favorite political commentator ass Andy's are so stupid? And the one clear and coherent through line here is that these people have no real values. They have no principles. They have no moral convictions. The people that like, you're just watching this for pure sport and this guy appeals to you in some way, and I say the same shit about Destiny too. I say the same shit about all these people that you're like, oh, why aren't you friends with these people? It's like, they're not my friends, dude. Okay? They're not. I have real legitimate differences in opinion on a lot of issues, and all these motherfuckers be happy that I don't talk about them, okay? Instead of constantly talking about them like I do with Ben Shapiro. Jimmy is a kook, but he has legit political strats. That's all. No, he doesn't. Jimmy is an idiot, but they know American political strategy. Yeah, no, totally. That's why he's always cooking big time, dude. He kind of does. No, he doesn't. The f are you talking about? No, he's sold himself to you as such. So you're just in here regurgitating that. The last best thing that Jimmy Dore ever did was spit on Alex Jones. Okay, that's it. He did that, and you know it's been downhill since then. It's so funny. Anyway, don't say hawk to a. Ugh, you guys are lame. Anyway, where are these Jimmy Dore stands coming from? I don't know. Jimmy Dore show. The Force the Voters watched the Republican Party explode over the past year and are still running on that narrative that level of like chaos is actually, it was a sound strategy. Like, look at the Republican Party. They did the force the vote shit, which Democrats never can do regardless, but like they did that and they just have never let it go. Yeah, they it's so funny. They're just like wreckers. They claim to be leftists, but they have the utmost contempt for anyone who is like ostensibly on the left. The members of the squad, those are the worst people in American politics in their eyes, okay? They're all big phonies. And also the Republican Party, on the other hand, they're not so bad, actually. It's like the moment that you say that to me, look, I'm a very simple guy, okay? I'm not very smart. I recognize that all day, every day. The moment that I start feeling like you don't have the same level of smoke for the American Republican Party, which are the most significant terrorists in this goddamn nation, both domestically and in foreign policy, the moment that I feel like you don't have that level of smoke for the Republicans that you do for like AOC and whatever, I'm like, I'm done. I'm cutting you out. Fuck it. Democratic Party across the board. I despise the Democratic Party. I shit on them with regular frequency. The moment that you start taking for granted what the Republicans are saying and don't apply the same level of criticism that you have for these charlatans in the blue is a moment where you're done. You're done. I will never be able to take you seriously, because this is something that many people fail to consider. I talk about the Democrats a lot. So they come in here and they think, oh, this guy hates the Democrats just like I do. Okay, which is true. I do hate the Democrats. They're awful. But the moment that you do not apply that same exact level of criticism to the Republican Party, it's done. It's over. I will never be able to take you seriously. The moment that you come at me and go, Josh Hawley is a real, pro-labor candidate, huh? He went to the picket line. Get the out of here, okay? The moment that you capitulate or even give a shred of legitimacy to like right-wing populism, immediately I'm like, I'm writing you off. You're a moron. You're the dumbest person in America. Like, why do we distrust the Democrats? They claim to care about the labor part. They claim to care about labor. They don't, right? They don't. So why in the ever-loving would you ever think the Republicans care about labor when they historically never have? It has to be righties pretending to be lefties, man. It happened in 2016 too. No, dude, you're silly. It's not that. No, it's not right-wingers pretending to be lefties, brother. It's way dumber than that. It is literally way dumber than that. Americans want to be like, they want to present themselves as smart. They want to present themselves as heterodox thinkers, and that's it. It's just stupid people. It's literally just stupidity. That's it. There is no other rhyme or reason. It's not like an operation where they're like secretly like, let's infiltrate the Jimmy Dore sphere and we can convince everyone in that sphere, all 300 of them, to be right wing. Like, well, yeah, okay, these guys weren't going to vote anyway. What the fuck are you talking about?
that might show that not only is the president going to lose the presidency, but he is going to lose the House. This Democratic lawmakers was essentially making the point that if such data were to come in, then the dam could break loose, and lawmakers who so far have been publicly behind the president could change their tune and say that it's time for somebody else to step in. But the campaign, for now, is doing their best to try to spin the debate as much as possible. They released a new campaign ad. The first one.
Jimmy Dore, Donald Trump will resurrect the Democratic Party if Trump gets elected, and we will have Elizabeth Warren in 2020. When he said that, Sam Cedar responded to him and said there's a chance Trump will add 3 Supreme Court justices. Sam was right. He also didn't know what a filibuster was. Okay, I have my own Jimmy Dore moment. Back when we were on the Young Turks together, we had a conversation in the 2016 election where I told him that I hate Hillary Clinton. However, Hillary Clinton will be significantly better than Donald Trump. On a lot of issues, Hillary Clinton is awful, okay? But Donald Trump is going to be far, far worse than Hillary Clinton. I said that. I said that to his face. We had an argument about it. I was right back then as well. Yeah, Jimmy Dore used to be on the TYT. So was I, for those of you who don't know. But how do you know that? I don't know, because I have eyes. I experienced the past of, the Trump presidency. I saw it. I saw it happen. I experienced it, as did you, I hope.
Since the debate, basically highlighting what they said were the lies that Donald Trump spewed during those 90 minutes. Take a look.
I know I'm not a young man, but I know how to do this job. I know right from wrong. I know how to tell the truth. And I know, like millions of Americans know.
Like, you can't be serious if you're asking, like, how is Donald Trump worse, right? Like, we have a 6-3 overwhelming supermajority in the Supreme Court. That alone is enough. Like, what are we talking about? He also completely diminished every federal regulatory agency. He either put direct lobbyists into positions of power, okay? He put the worst corporate animals into positions of power, including, like, billionaires. And he refused to appoint people into positions that he was supposed to. It got so bad that GM came out and was like, you really have to do something about carbon pollution. Or no, not carbon pollution. What was it? He deregulated fracking. And it got so bad that even American industrialists were like, we have to dial this back a little bit. Like, it's just out of control. Anyway, it's not carbon capture. Anyway. This is a shit approach from Biden campaign. Everyone knows Trump lies constantly. I know. When
you get knocked down, you get back up.
Really speaks volumes, Brianna, that this ad pulls from Donald Trump and what he said during the debate, but only pulls from the president and his appearance.
I mean, dude, I'm still not done with the Trump shit. Largest tax cuts for corporations and the wealthy at a time when, like, unimaginable profits were happening. Unimaginable profits. Since the Reagan era, Donald Trump brought forward the largest tax cuts. And the funniest part about those tax cuts were that at the top marginal tax rate, those tax cuts are permanent. Every other tax cut, however, all the little $5 at the end of the month that you got back in your pocket, those sunset because they don't give a about you. Okay, tax cuts are made permanent for the wealthy and the corporations, lowering the corporate tax rate, lowering the top marginal tax rate. Meanwhile, your tax cuts have sunsetted or are slated to sunset next year. Okay, it's so stupid. It's so stupid. It's anyway.
At a rally the day after the debate, and not from anything that he said during the debate.
Yeah, certainly. Is there any reaction, MJ, from the White House or from the campaign when it comes to this Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity?
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly seizing the news cycle to make the points that they already had been about January 6th and the issue of democracy overall, saying that this all goes to show, and their message hasn't changed on this, that January 6th was an event where Donald Trump played a terrible role for the country. and that all of this just is a reminder of the threat that Donald Trump represents. This is what one senior advisor to the president said in a statement. They said, today's ruling doesn't change the facts, so let's be very clear about what happened on January 6th. Donald Trump snapped after he lost the 2020 election and encouraged a mob to overthrow the results of a free and fair election. They also said Trump is already running for president as a convicted felon for the very same reason. He sat idly by while the mob violently attacked the Capitol. He thinks he's above the law and is willing to do anything to gain and hold on to power for himself. Just goes on to say that Trump is worse than before, more unhinged, commenting on what he said recently about being a dictator on day one. So basically, they're trying to make the point that regardless of the Supreme Court ruling today, their message on this point, at least, is going to remain the same.
By the way, I want to say something here. Maybe you guys will disagree with me, but the part of the reason why the Republicans are not in unison being like, oh, no, don't actually take Biden off the ticket, he's doing fine, is because of what I just mentioned, that the race is close still. Like, because I feel like if they genuinely thought they could beat Biden, they would be like not hitting it as hard that he's like mentally ill and whatever, or demented. But the reason why they're not doing that is because the race is close, and therefore, like, they are using this as an opportunity to continue hammering the narrative that like Joe Biden is demented. They don't want Joe Biden to be replaced. They just want to keep hitting Joe Biden. Part of the reason why they don't want Joe Biden to be they are worried about Biden's replacement, but they're worried about Biden as well. That's a better way to put it. Because like, why the fuck else would they be constantly talking about like, yeah, you got to replace Joe Biden. You got to replace Joe Biden. It's because one, they know that it's not going to happen. And two, they're basically worried about Joe Biden anyway. So they're trying to hammer him as much as possible on the demented front. And you've been doing the same thing for the last 3 to 4 days. So what do you like to see from Biden's camp for him to step down? What's our path to victory here? Answer the question. How do we keep him out of office? Biden or someone else? Yes, someone else. Yeah. Replace him at the convention. Explain to the American population that these things happen. Joe Biden comes out with a swift exit, says like, listen, I've been a statesman for as long as many people have been alive. And I think as my final act, like I want to make sure that the end of my presidency has a solid legacy. Has this ever happened before? Why is it that motherfuckers that come in here with so much attitude are completely oblivious to the history of America? Yes, yes, it has happened before. Okay. 1, presidents die. Okay. That's happened. 2, it has happened before. Lyndon B. Johnson. The point is, it's about how it should happen. It's about how it should happen. No, the attitude, I'm asking a question. No, the attitude is coming from this, and you've been doing the same thing for the last 3 to 4 days. That's where the attitude is coming from. Don't try to sneak that in here as though you didn't come in here with some goddamn attitude. Okay, you did come in here with some attitude. You're saying that I am cynically attacking Biden in the same way that like Republicans are. Okay, don't try to do this thing where you're like, oh well, is that a fact or no? The energy and the motivation behind why I'm saying Joe Biden needs to be replaced is not the same as Fox News, unless you're so stupid that you stupidly subscribe for 3 months to a Fox News style political commentator. Is that what you're saying? I don't think you're stupid. Like, immediately going, oh, you're being critical to Joe Biden in an election year who is like 800 years old, and repeating the same criticisms that you've had of Joe Biden that you've had since 2020, since even before he ran, as a matter of fact. While he was running, I was saying this shit, okay? While he was running, I was like, why are we dropping the incumbent advantage that we're going to have when Joe Biden's brain is like obviously deteriorated even back then in comparison to how he was in 2018, in comparison to how he was in 2016, in comparison to how he was in 2012. I'm sorry that I'm not going to shut the fuck up about like something that I'm obviously correct on now that like you're worried about Biden's prospects. Okay? It's so ridiculous. And it's basically the same exact principle behind Hillary 2016. Can you give us the example of this happening before? I'd like to be educated on this. Yes, Democratic candidates or Democratic incumbents have dropped out. Okay? I already did. I'm worried mainly about minorities. What happened today is crazy. What happened today happened under the Biden presidency, number one. Number two, Biden literally refused to pack the court because he said it would be politicizing the Supreme Court. What happened today is literally another direct example of another thing that I criticized Biden on heavily in the beginning of his presidency that he didn't follow through on. Okay? He refused to expand the Supreme Court. He refused to push to expand the Supreme Court. He said he can't do that. Okay? Now that I answered your former question, it's really funny that you're also turning around and being like, well, what about the minorities? What do you want? You want Biden to kill the minorities personally instead of Donald Trump? Is that what you want? That'll make you content with the situation at hand? We're always like, oh, well, he's a little bean. He's a small bean. He can't do nothing. Then why the fuck are we voting for him? Like, what do you mean, small bean? I want a big bean, okay? I want a bean that can do something. If you're worried about what might happen to minorities under the Trump regime, you should probably, I don't know, get to phone banking and lie to every person that you talk to about Biden's immigration policy, which is Trump's immigration policy from 4 years ago. Okay? You should lie to voters so you can get them to go out and vote for Joe Biden. Because Joe Biden, on the other hand, is taking a right-wing stance on immigration. So maybe you don't care about minorities at all. You just want the Democratic Party to win. I don't know.